Alright, hello, and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today I'm going to be spending a little bit of time going over some charts. I know there's quite a few of the people that watch and follow this channel that are championing the idea that we have one more low to make before we can blast off. So, anything can happen, it's a market. As always, the only thing I know is that I don't know. But, the market, as far as I can tell, is looking more encouraging by the day. So I know, like I said, a lot of you are championing this idea that we're going to come down, sweep this low, make one final low, and then reverse and go. And maybe we will. But I just wanted to caution against a few things here. I just wanted to point out a few things. First of all, if that's your idea, then that's fine. Have a plan and stick to it. But if we break out of this downward sloping red resistance line here, if the price does not indeed make a low and instead breaks out, then I would be willing to abandon this thesis and flip long on a technical breakout. You have to have an invalidation for your idea. If the market does not come down and take out that low like a lot of people think it will, then this would be my invalidation personally. We also have a new daily cycle upon us. So all the while we're above this low, it's reasonable to expect another 60-day cycle to unfold, just like we've seen in the prior times. Again, this is a subtle hint that we should be expecting upside rather than downside. The other thing to keep in mind is based on these cycles, if Bitcoin does come down and take out that low, then what we will have is a failed cycle. And what that usually tells us is that we would be expecting the remainder of this next 60-day cycle to form in a downtrend, meaning that this cycle low from up here where I've got it, which is just an approximation, might end up forming all the way down here. So that's not something I personally think we should be championing. I don't think this idea of having one final low and then going is something we want to see from the price action of Bitcoin. You'll notice if I click this into log as well, we're kind of following this with a surprising amount of accuracy, right? Now, obviously fractals are fractals. They're not to be traded on. They're more for fun than anything else, but they do sometimes provide a bit of context. And as you can see here, this is not wildly dissimilar. And zooming back into this, you will see if you're just looking at the green fractal here, when we did indeed get a pullback, we did not undercut the original low. So from my mind at least, and from my perspective, there are some subtle tells here that say we should be open to seeing more bullishness than bearishness. The other thing I want to point out is the crypto-related equities such as Coinbase are showing relative strength. MicroStrategy is showing even more relative strength. Riot as well, as you can see, big pop up, now clearing this breakout level as well. And here's Marathon, as you can see, holding up relatively stronger. So these crypto-related equities seem to know something. They have been hinting at us for a while, and I've been talking about this on and off because remember when Bitcoin, let me hop back into a Bitcoin chart. When Bitcoin was setting lower lows, whilst we saw this in MicroStrategy, lower low, we did not see it in Riot. As you can see, lower low, bunch of equal lows. And I was talking about this being a hint that the Bitcoin price was probably going to reverse. This is underlying relative strength from the blockchain stocks. And we saw that exact same thing here in Marathon. Again, did not make lower lows. Instead, it held a line of support. Again, hinting at us that perhaps there was some underlying strength that the Bitcoin chart wasn't showing us. So to be clear, I don't know what's going to happen. I never know what's going to happen. But so far we have made one technical repair. We have broken out of this very sharp and steep downward sloping red resistance line. And if, and it is still an if, we were to get above this downward sloping blue one here, which was colored red on this other chart, as you can see, then I would personally be saying we have a breakout and it's reasonable to expect a further upside. Like I said, there's a bunch of other hints that I've already shown you. There's the cycle low, there is the fractal, there is the relative strength from the blockchain related stocks. So anything can happen one day at a time. But so far, as far as I can tell, the longs that I took out of that cycle low for Bitcoin, so we added to a position here, as you can see, we took one here, currently right around break even. We also added an Ethereum long at the same time, which again, you can see relative strength from Ethereum. I've only just noticed this, to be fair. Let me draw a trend line. So as you can see, we're kind of right into resistance. But if we were to break out of here, then this is a technical breakout. This tells us to be more open to bullishness than bearishness, and it tells us to expect higher numbers over the coming days and weeks. Whilst the add-on Coinbase is sitting slightly in a open loss, we also have MicroStrategy sitting in a profit. We have Riot sitting in a profit, and we have Marathon sitting in a profit. So all of this to me tells me these things look okay as it stands. Now things can change and they can change quickly, but they haven't changed yet. So I guess my message is simple. Just keep an open mind about better than expected outcomes over the coming days and weeks. Also, like I said, just keep in mind that if we were to come down here and undercut this low, we would have indeed put in and printed a failed daily cycle telling us that the next 60-day cycle should be in a downtrend. So be careful what you wish for. In the meantime, this is what I'm wishing for. I'm wishing for this big parabolic advance, this big blow off top, which I know a lot of people will not like. I know a lot of people will not understand, and a lot of people will be certain of themselves that this cannot happen. But it's a market, and remember, markets always move to harm the most amount of participants. Speaking of rallies that people do not like, speaking of the most hated rally, the most salted rally, the least understood, most doubted, most shorted rally of all time, we are seeing this more and more on my Twitter feed. This is the most overbought crowded tech rally in years, according to Endless Capital. And what makes no sense is that nothing is accelerating higher except the market. Not revenues, not earnings, not margins, not inflation, not growth, nothing other than price. It doesn't make sense. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know I've been saying this over and over again. It does not make sense, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. There are a million reasons to be bearish, and I agree with those bearish narratives. I am one of the biggest bears out there. And again, if you've been watching the channel, you'll know I'm calling for an 80 to 90% decline in the Dow. But first, I think we're going to see this blow off top. I think the VIX is going to compress, like I've been saying, and then I think it's time to get long, and for what I believe will be one of the biggest trades of the year. People have hated this idea of a blow off top. People have hated this idea of a melt up, and yet here we sit, continuing to print higher highs and higher lows. So as ever, one day at a time, but make no mistake about it, people are angry. People do not understand. They are indeed in disbelief. Most of this tech rally, if not all, has been happening in mega cap multiple expansion and in the context of a tightening cycle. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But that, again, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And you can see here, this is the sort of overarching theme, isn't it? I think in short order, since we've made this market, I disagree strongly. The market doesn't have to make sense. It's liquidity driven. We have fake data everywhere you look. We have the Fed losing control, falling asleep at the wheel with the wheels coming off all at the same time. Right? None of this makes sense. None of this has made sense in a long time. This is just where we live, and this is why I'm such an advocate for technical analysis. The charts, the price is the truth. Everything else is just in the way, including your ego and the idea that you think you're better at macro than the majority of the Wall Street analysts. So stay humble, stack sats, read the charts. Let's see. Kush here is even more bullish than me. However, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see this. As I said before, this fractal is kind of for fun, but it's right until it's wrong. And if we do indeed come out of here swinging, if we do continue to make parabolic advances, then this will continue to be right. And that's how I will continue to trade this. Of course, break away from this, and you'll see me scratch this one off and say, well, of course, in hindsight, that was obvious. But for now, this is working out. And Kush here, as you can see, continuing to champion pretty much the same thing. A parabola that he thinks is going to run into the middle of this year, perhaps into Q3, and top at around 130 to 140,000. And I would not be surprised. And like I've been saying over and over again, I think this is how you upset the most amount of market participants. I think you blow this thing off. Everyone is like, super cycle, man, $1 million a coin, man. We're going to have a little pullback into the halving, and then we're going to go to $1 million, except we won't. What we'll do, I think, is leave everyone that thinks the halving drives the bull market to hold the bag whilst the smart money offloads here, and we enter a 3-year bear market rally. Bear market decline. Now, again, this is to be determined. This is not a prediction. This is me simply saying all the while we continue to blow off, all the while we continue to advance in a parabola, then this is the thing that I expect to play out. Now, again, just to be clear, if we break from this, if we trade sideways, if we were to deviate and come down and retest the low or take out the low, then I will scratch this idea off. But again, this is right until it's wrong, and it doesn't seem that insane to me. It seems like the way that you would catch the most amount of people, because even very experienced Bitcoin traders are 100% certain that we are going to do something like we've always done before into that halving and then blow off. But what if we don't? How do you upset the most amount of market participants? Remember, you blow it off and then leave it going down for 3 years. So I would not at all be surprised if it's this left translated 3-year bear market decline. But again, I'm open to everything, and the only thing I know is that I do not know. In other news, the percentage of Bitcoin miner revenue derived from fees has now dropped to 7%, which is still elevated from previous years, but we are seeing the backside of this ordinal fiasco. Remember, it's very expensive to just needlessly upload and bombard the Bitcoin blockchain with arbitrary data, and so eventually people are going to run out of money or get bored of doing this, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So far so good. I think we'll continue to see the fees trend down up until the point, of course, that retail enters the market, and then we'll see the spikes that we always see as we start to go parabolic. If you think about it, at some point, the price has to catch up with the fundamentals. The fundamentals have been improving over and over again for a very long time. The balance on exchanges, the amount of Bitcoin being withdrawn, continues to decline. The liquid supply available from exchanges keeps dwindling. Also, whole coiner addresses continue to be up and to the right. The long-term holder supply, again, continues to set new all-time highs. And the supply that was last active over a year ago also continues to set new highs. This tells us that people are buying Bitcoin, taking it off exchanges into cold wallet, stacking as much as they can, trying to get to over one whole coin, only for them to never come and sell. They want to diamond hand this thing and keep hold of that Bitcoin for at least 1 year. As demand continues and increases, supply is dwindling. It's only a matter of time before the Bitcoin price catches up to the metrics that we are seeing here. And so a quick run through the charts. Here's the S&P 500. All the while we're above this downward sloping purple resistance line, and more importantly, above this upward sloping red support line, then I remain long. I remain targeting some kind of bullish move up here before we drop down into that cycle low, which is due around the 29th of June. The NASDAQ, I continue to be long, I continue to push, and as you can see, all the while we're above this upward sloping red support line, there is no technical reason to exit the trade. Dow Jones, on the other hand, is this complete in breakout retest looking for that resumption, or is this going to roll over? As you can see here, I have managed some risk because I've moved the stop loss up from here to this red dotted line at break even. So I have zero risk on this trade. I'm just going to try to push it and see if we can get something nice out of here. The Dow is definitely showing relative weakness, but we remain long until we have reason to exit the trade. This is the VIX. The VIX, kind of a messy chart, but you can see what's going on here. Still looking to break down before we can think about entertaining longs. Now, still underneath this green area of resistance, and if I zoom out, you'll see where this red line comes from. We are slowly but surely working on a breakdown that could send us all the way down to the low teens. Of course, if the VIX is indeed going to break down to the low teens, then expect risk to come on massively. Expect the stock market to rally massively, and I'm sure Bitcoin will go with it too. The FTSE 100, still not very interesting to me, but get above this downward sloping yellow resistance line and you will see me add along. We're kind of half following my squiggle at the moment, so like I said before and over again, break out of the downward sloping yellow resistance line, and that is a long from me all day. I've kind of already covered the crypto-related equities, haven't I? So not much more to say about those. I notice Apple continues to trade above this blue upward sloping support line. Again, it's the same deal, isn't it? Over and over again. All the while we're above this, then no reason to exit the trade. IPX kind of showing relative weakness here, so we'll see what can happen. For now, I remain long and strong and we continue to push. Gold pulling down into this area of support, this blue upward sloping support line. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens here. Does this break down? Because if it does, that has to be a short trigger whilst we line up the long entry, which will come from far lower down. Not personally interested in silver or the miners until we get much further down for gold and a technical reversal. But I do believe that whenever this occurs, this is going to provide the final opportunity to get long from a decent number before gold undergoes a massive bull market. XRP still speaks to a rollover, in my opinion, still speaks to following this green squiggle, so no problem from that. If we break out of here, then we can start to entertain longs, but personally I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to need another drive down before we can think about breaking out. Here's the Dixie, so right into support, seems like a logical move. Can it roll over? Is it going to take some time? Quite possibly, but I do think it's going to roll over. I do think the target is still to the downside and in the mid 90s for the Dixie. Lastly, here's TLT. I know a lot of you like this. I know a lot of you like the idea of TLT. That's fine, you do you. Just something to flag here. No recession trade as a trigger has not shown up. The trigger, of course, would be a breakout of this top level of the range here, this yellow top horizontal. But it might be a trade idea if you really like TLT to see if we can get a touch off of the bottom of this line here. And if we can, you could possibly buy a swing reversal here with a stop just below. That might be an idea if you like TLT. That's entirely up to you. So that's it from me. It's shaping up to be an interesting week. Let's see what happens to Bitcoin. Let's see if we get that undercut that a lot of people are calling for, or let's see if the cycle and the rest of the hints that we are getting shown from the market suggest that we could see further upside from Bitcoin. It's going to be an interesting week. It's already shaping up to be an interesting week. So if you want to see more of this type of content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And in the meantime, I'm your boy Camel. Take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.